And a very good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our Lyceum evening, coming to you from the Paul Spiritualist Church on the south coast of the UK. Very good friend of mine tonight, the lovely Angela Foster. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, love. Can you get out of the way and invite him on? No.
Him. Had to be him. Thanks for that. Really feel good now.
The lovely Angela Foster, DSNU. Angela, good evening, my darling.
Hello, Laurie. I'm really delighted to be here this evening. I mean, what else would we be doing on a beautiful sunny Saturday evening when the sun's shining if we've not been invited to a barbecue? I mean, it shows how sad are we.
Do you know what, when I have people saying, "Oh, I want to be a medium," I automatically respond now, "Oh, you want to give up 30 Sundays of the year, miss out on family occasions, travel the length and the breadth of the country, and receive these lukewarm, welcomes and commendations." Is that what you want?
Yeah, obviously. We just didn't know we did.
Yeah. So, Angela and I often have conversations, thoughts, and just back things about, which is always lovely when you can do that with somebody, when we meet on an equal field. But we were talking about the subject title tonight is Today's Needs in Mediumship. And are we meeting them? Huge subject. And we can get sidetracked and waylaid down little personal avenues. So we're trying not to do that tonight. But we were talking this general aspect. Can I start off, please, Angela?
Yeah.
And I'll repeat what we were saying just before we went live about we do have this preponderancy to keep comparing the standards of mediumship today to the pioneers, to the greats, to the Gordon Higginsons, to the Battling Berthas, all those names that can just roll off the tongue. But I'm thinking, our world has changed. Gordon Higginson didn't have to sit there and spend 3 hours a day updating his social media. He didn't have the pressures that today's world put on him. And you brought up a really interesting thing there about a Tibetan monk and doing this 3-hour meditation every day. When that is all that they are doing. I don't mean that demeaning by any way, but they're not, trying to fit that in between working 9 to 5, keeping the missus happy, running the kids around or whatever. So I think, so, we can look back at the pioneers and marvel for what they did because it was groundbreaking stuff. But it seems, in a way, the groundbreaking stopped there. That we've now just sort of like pitched our pitch on those standards, on those levels, and not really looked at our interaction with the other world. Do we confine the other world? Do we just do things verbatim and this is in the teaching as well? So thoughts, please, Angela.
Well, the thing is it really so groundbreaking how the spirit world worked with us? We only know what we have been told because at the time that it became widespread, there was a great movement of knowledge and understanding. There was communication. But communication with the spirit world has been going on for millennia in different forms. And we only have to go back to the Bible and see it was rife in the Bible. The problem is, though, that for each generation, it needed to be appropriate for the times that people were facing.
Yeah.
And gradually, the spirit world has shown that it can change. It can add little extra bits, it can tweak, it can get to bigger audiences, it can be more dramatic at times in the way it presents itself with physical mediumship, for example, or it can rein in and become more mental. So there's this tide, it's almost like a tide that's continually moving. You on a seashore, you don't see a tide that's stationary. It's forever moving, and it brings in new stones. It brings in sea glass, which I'm so into at the moment, and all those other beautiful treasures. The problem is that if we rely on the teaching methods to remain constant, then we are denying ourselves that opportunity to move with the tide. And that's the problem. You know, best practice, we are told best practice. Well, by whose account is it best practice? By what measure is it best practice? You know, have we talked to the spirit world and said, is this best practice? So I need to really understand how far we can accept change, rule out the best practice that has worked for us and served us well, and yet be dynamic enough to understand that the spirit world also have a need to change. Who leads who?
Very good. Very good. For the benefit of people either watching tonight live, and a very good evening, or watching later on catch up, welcome, welcome. Angela has taken a degree in teaching.
Nearly a degree, level 5.
A dig.
Level 5, not level 6 yet.
She's got a little degree.
Yeah, 80% of a full degree.
But Andrew has taken an independent route on teaching and not assigning to anybody or anything in particular, but an actual government recognised educational establishment recognised teaching qualification. So when we're talking about teaching, we could not have a better person with us, but they can't make it tonight, so we've got Angela.
It's a good thing we live hundreds of miles apart, about 8 hours traveling.
That's why I'm being so brave.
Yeah.
But seriously, we couldn't have a better person, more fit. Some of the things Angela has said can be challenging, and that's, do you know what? That's great. You know, don't walk off with my rear higher than the back of my head, stomping off down the path. It's really good because it's a nice, fresh approach, and it is of the time. And that's the crucial thing. And you said something there about the spirit world. No, I'm going to change that. I don't hear constantly the spirit world's input into these things. I'm going to do this. I'm setting this up. And I teach development in our circles here. And that's the one thing I constantly pull up the sitters when they say I. So please don't say I, because without them, you wouldn't be up there. So acknowledge that, continually acknowledge it. Because I believe the more we acknowledge we are part of that team, we are equal partners in that relationship,
Absolutely.
The more that information will flow. Because, you know, we tell ourselves what we are. And if we're sitting there going, Carmen Miranda doing, we're telling ourselves it's us. Whereas it distinctly is not.
The other side of that is not just it's us, it's I, but we are. One thing that really annoys me, and only because it just doesn't feel right, is this idea that we're serving the spirit world. Yeah. It is such a team approach. I mean, each member of that team needs the other members there to support and to facilitate. And, you know, it's not as if we suddenly become these wonderful creatures when we've passed over to the spirit world and suddenly we're the great and the good and everybody down are just plebs. This is so important that we realize that we're part of a teamwork, and that may help us understand that everybody in the team can contribute to what is happening at this moment and how this will develop in the future.
I agree wholeheartedly there. I see in other areas this term of being of service can actually lead to the abuse of the medium, because you are being presented in a servile approach. Well, you're here to serve us. You're here to serve the church. You're here to serve the centre. You know, whoa, hang fire. That's not the case in most cases, I'm very grateful to say, but there is that. But also, again, it's our psychology. You know, when we talk about service, an awful lot of people associate servile with it.
Mhm.
So, and when we say, oh, I'm being of service, are we talking ourselves out of any administrative and practical duties in our relationship with the other world because I am your humble servant, tell me what to do?
You've made a great point about that, because this is also about devolving personal responsibility. We're either at the end of personal responsibility where it's I, and the ego, or at the other end where we're completely subservient, and it's almost, I think there's a word for it, isn't there? It'll come to me in a minute, in a legal situation where the company take responsibility, it's a beautiful word, it'll come back, for everything that you do, and therefore they are ultimately responsible if anything goes wrong. But it's so much more than that, and that makes it so much richer if we're somewhere in the middle, that we can contribute. There is this movement of energy, of ideas, of concepts, of working practices, and that's how good companies work, by acknowledging everybody at all levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And again, you know, it's bringing ourselves back into that equation. I know through the practices, and especially when we start talking about trance, about letting the mind go, just expand the awareness. I do understand that. So you can't sit in that environment going, okay, talk to me about this. But in the times when we are not actually demonstrating, when we sit with our teams, when we talk to our teams, surely that is the place, you know, we've got our place at the boardroom table.
Yes.
And say, do you know what? I would really like, if we could, you know, today's world, constant change, yada, yada. I would really like that to come in as an essence into tonight's trance dem or tomorrow's address, whatever it may be, because we know that when we put the thought out there, where thought goes, energy follows. That's
Absolutely. Yeah, and the other thing to remember too about the trance state is that you have to give permission for this blending to occur. Thank you, vicarious liability. That's what I was trying to think of. Thank you, Jamie. And I thought it might be you who'd come up with it. Absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah, it was.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, bless you. Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking of. But yes, I mean, it's you know, we have to give permission for that trance state to happen, for that blending to occur. And also when we're working in a demonstration, we have to give permission. This is not a servile situation. Servants do not give permission for their employers to work them to the bone. You know, this doesn't happen. But this leads us to, how can we then make sure that what is happening is fit for purpose?
Yeah. And there, in just top of my head, there we are going to be reliant on that position of trust that we built up with the other world, with our team. That trusting, you know, sometimes things are done, things are said, things are happen, and you're just like, yeah, I'm really not sure about this. But it's always the constant message is hold the line, hold the line. And for reasons that may become transparent or reasons that may not become transparent. A bit like my favourite film, Sliding Doors. Those two stories, made the train, didn't make the train, and two complete stories from that one event. But yeah, I believe in a very active state of communication with the other world. I hold on to that. And I engage. When I'm demming, we're doing it, we're following the thread, and if my mind comes in, whoops, break the thread, come on, pick it back up and go along with it. But, you know, the other world know us better than we know ourselves. It's as simple as that. And that, to me, is always one of the big truisms. And they understand, they know that I was demming last night, and it was a very different type of demonstration. the evidence was there, the presentation had shifted quite significantly, but it all worked. And I was like, do you know what? I am really happy with that. I am really buoyant because it was well received. And unfortunately, in today's world, we do have, again, we're using this word passivity, where we're going out to churches and centres. And, you know, the thought of, shall we hold hands and contact the living comes to mind at times.
Yeah.
You know, this is a joy, this is a miracle, this is a marvel that we embark on each and every time. And it's to share that enthusiasm and to share that upliftment and to share that seed.
Yeah, and in doing so, we then begin to understand that connection with the spirit world in a different and a deeper way. I mean, I was able to give a private message, to somebody today who needed it, and it was just in the text message. I mean, for goodness sake, it, spirit world drew close while I was communicating during the text message, and you think, can you imagine how the mediums of 30 years ago would have coped with that? Not having somebody physically in front of them. I mean, and then for so long we said, oh, we can't do this online. We can't do that online. We can't do trance online. We can't possibly have mediumship or philosophy online. It's not the same. The rules have to be broken because we create the rules. Yeah. And if we don't understand that nothing is forever, that there'll be elements that we keep, but it'll be like one of those flow charts that sort of move and then close off, and then a bit more, and then something else will come in, and then that will get abandoned. But it is so important that we understand this. And listening to, I believe, the way that other mediums work. I mean, I have a very favorite teacher, and everything from him is always absolutely to the point. And I think how privileged we are that somebody can say, I don't see it the way other people do. There's a fantastic young lad on Facebook at the moment who is delivering some quite revolutionary information about the role of Jesus. To be honest, would terrify most Christians.
Yeah.
Because it just turns everything upside down. But unless we have people like that who can challenge what we believe and how we believe it, we are never, ever going to move forward. We'll be stagnant.
And it's how we receive new ideas, isn't it? Because we do have a bit of a propensity to, no, that's it. Don't do that. Don't change it. Leave it alone. But, if we look at things and different thought, I love what I call generational mediumship. And I can see that from one end of the spectrum to the other being demonstrated. No offense to any age group whatsoever. You get one extreme, you will have the grandmother figure and father with an allotment and things like that coming through, because that was of that generation. And then where we start moving down through the ranks here, we're getting people. Somebody the other day said their Facebook page is still active, and I loved that. I absolutely loved that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to move with, after all, we call it a movement.
Yes, good point. Yes,
we are called a movement, yet we tend to deny movement. We get into a cozy place, a comfortable place. And I see this as well with the development of potential mediums for the future, that they are adherent to something they've been told, which has obviously been handed down in this lineage in the circles. And why don't you challenge that? If you say, well, what was it? It was a lovely old lady in our church, and she said, if you don't want the medium coming to you, cross your legs. And people will sit there crossing their legs.
I'm just going to turn the power on, otherwise that's going to be the sign that I'm not wanted tonight. 2 seconds.
Okay, bye. In the meantime,
Keep talking. I'm here.
yeah, that's all right.
I could see my battery going down. I'm thinking I'm going to get kicked out of this faster than I expect. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Or in order to deliver power, we have to put our hands like that, or to receive it, or it's the other way. And all these mannerisms that we're supposed to adopt, and if we don't, well, it won't happen. It's just so controlling.
It is.
So controlling.
It is. It is. I had an interesting thought the other day, and I just thought, actually, some of these practices, I can understand some of the passages in the Bible a little bit more about craven images and idolatry.
Mm.
And I thought, yeah, do you know what? We've created that because we're very good at giving our power away. We are absolutely top class in doing that. If you do that, this will happen. If you do this, that will happen. And I just say to people, you want to know who's in control. You want to know who's directing everything. Go and look in the mirror. Because it all stems from you. Everything. And it all stems from every facet of your character, of your nature, of your intent. So, yeah, we do. We hold on to some ideals. Anybody out there, if you want to share, please do. But have you ever been told something in circle and you've just thought, really? A practice. So one of my old circle leaders said, you never wear black in the circle because you never take a cat in a circle. You never wear black in a circle because you will attract evil spirits. And again, these are things that have either been passed down or a situation has been very badly misread. So, anybody out there, please, if you'd like to share.
While people are coming in, I had a situation many years ago. I was in a teaching session and I was getting very, very vivid images about this particular event. And then the medium said, well, of course, you've got now, because of the way you're telling it, you've now got evil spirits attached to you. And she came and she waved her hands around and took them out to a tree outside. Then I thought, excuse me, what's happening here? What can she see that I don't feel? This is my little energy moment. Okay, I may not be feeling very good things, but I don't think my team are going to expose me to spirits hanging off every orifice, which then have to be removed to a tree. Why a tree? Tell me what? Why a tree? A fast-moving car going in the opposite direction might be a good idea, but why a tree?
I know, and again, that to me, that when you peel away at those sort of statements, it does show this putting the power into something else. Oh, it's the evil spirit that's bringing you down, and I can remove it all. What? Actually, we are our own protection. We, is down to our own intellectual, moral, and standards. That is our garden shield, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, there's so many we see on Facebook, which, to be honest, scares me at the moment about the stuff that's coming out, because there's no control, there's no filter, and people are being confused by ideology which has got nothing to do with the truth. People have heard me say that the one time that Dad actually came through and spoke about the spirit world itself, rather than supporting me in any endeavor I was taking on board, was, this is much bigger than you could ever believe. Get rid of the middleman. And unfortunately, the middleman, is like Chinese whispers, do tend to change the message. And at that time, for me, it was the Catholic Church, which he had already left while he was in this lifetime. But whatever that middleman is, we have to be so careful that they don't act like an unwelcome shroud around us, so that when we do have those moments of brilliance, of clarity, of understanding, of perception, of deep, and it's not faith because it's actually real, of deep connection, that we don't, as you said, allow somebody else to come in and take that power away from us. in order to make it their truth, which they can then dress up with some fancy language and put word organization after it or whatever.
Definitely. A couple of comments coming in.
Yeah, good.
Roy McKay saying he was informed many years ago that no one should ever challenge the authority of the spirit realm. I have a saying. I know when it's going to be my turn to go home because all my guides will be reincarnating to get out of there before I get up there.
Well, actually, I'm just looking up a comment I sent to you the other day, if I may. And yeah, and to be honest, it's particularly relevant at this point. If you want to come up and you haven't left the scene. Oh, yeah. And basically, I said, where's it never when you want it? I wonder what will happen when our generation, where ego is easily lit, retires to the spirit world. Will we be regarded with respect as our forebears? Will we suddenly see the light with an overnight day conversion from prejudice and ego to love, light, truth, trust, and wisdom? I wonder. I mean, what makes them better than us?
Yeah.
What will make us better than everybody else?
And again, I feel very much that's a very, if we ask everybody on here tonight, what's the spirit world like, we're going to get 26 different descriptions, which are all correct. Simple as that, because it is our truth. It is our understanding tonight on the 17th of August. This is what we truly believe. My understanding and belief of it is, no, not belief. My understanding of it is, there's going to be, I'm going to find what I expect. It doesn't make sense to me that I'm going to go somewhere and, say, it's pure vibration. Well, coming from a physical realm into pure vibration is going to have an effect on you. So I'm going to see some sort of transitional change. I'm also very much aware that you and I are similar. So there is this opportunity that come that time that we will find ourselves in our company. But also that will reflect from our character and our nature. So if we are completely the egotists, then we may well find ourselves in a realm full of egotists to bring about that revelation. Because my understanding again is we have got to bring that understanding to us to evolve. If we're not going to, you've been very, very naughty, doesn't sit with me. So
it's weird.
Yeah. Anyway, another quick comment here from the lovely Ellen. Saying when she voiced to someone she was interested in exploring trance, I was told, "Oh, you don't want to do that as you will die young." That's a bit chilling, isn't it, really?
It's scare tactics again, isn't it? We want to keep control, so there'll only be certain people in our organization that can do this, because if anybody else does, it'll kill you.
Yeah.
It's just. Yeah. The thing is, hang on, Jamie.
Yeah. So he does raise a good point there.
Yeah.
Saying it seems to me a lot of these practices are grounded in the need to have power and control. Because we sometimes make it too mysterious, don't we? It is mysterious. So, everything we work with and everything we unfold is full of mysteries, but it's not, you have to sit in the dark and wait for the mist to rise around you. Oh, I could do that. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the voice, you've got the authority that would make me just absolutely agree. Yeah, right, whatever. Do I wait to have me tea now, or shall I keep it hot on the, But this is all about expectations. I mean, the animal world don't have expectations like we do, which must be really wonderful, because we ruin so much exploration by expectations, because we think that will then decide what and how we're having the experience. And then our monkey minds come in. Now, I actually heard from somebody who does meditation that actually monkey mind is really useful. Problem is that monkey mind can also ask too many questions, but doesn't provide the answers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because we could be so busy going, what, if, how, that the spirit will go, well, you haven't let me get a word in edgeways. And this is what often happens during mediumship, isn't it? When we start asking questions, we take control of the communication. We don't surrender to it. But how we're going to change and then be responsive, not reactive, no, responsive, not reactive, which is what you've been talking about on your Facebook page, that we've talked about previously, about being responsive and not reactive. That being responsive is actually quite a mature intellectual concept. Being reactive is actually almost like the primeval response that comes first in a situation. It's almost like the fight and flight scenario. Yeah. So if we were actually consciously think, I'm only going to respond, I'm not going to react, then maybe each and every one of us in our mediumship will begin to see a different dynamic playing out. What do you think? What do you think?
I think that's full of potential there. And also going back to the way we interact with the other world, it's the questions that we put to them at times. You know, we'll come out with a question and actually we've not thought it through. We've not thought the implications, what the possible outcomes are, and what is the actual basis of it. And I'm pretty sure at times, you know, when we talk to the other world just blithely glide over it because it's not going to serve any purpose of value. You've only asked for it for maybe to support your own egotism. You've only asked for it to gain great wisdom and knowledge and deny you the personal experience of going through the situation and learning it. Yeah. There's so many variables there. So I've always said, you know, you've got to be very careful how you ask things of the other world. You really need to think it through and look at all the multitude, you know, like, why are you asking that question? That's a really good question. Why are you asking that? What do you want from the potential answers? And if it's not...
Is it Socrates? Which great philosopher? I'm sure Laurie will help me out with this one too. My mind is like a sieve at the moment. Is it Socrates who answers a question with a question?
I don't know, but we can ask the great god Google.
I think it might be Socrates. I might be wrong, but it's certainly one of them like that, you know, say, well, if I throw the question back at you, you'll probably have the answer. But we're not allowed to do that. We expect that if we throw a question out, that we will get the answer. We won't be given another question to find the answer within us. And that's Correct. Empowering. That's really empowering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we do have the answer. If we pull them out of ourselves, it's almost like pulling. So I pulled up a dandelion. Was it yesterday? Couldn't believe how far that root went down. Now I do know that dandelions are really good for you and you can eat all of it, but it wasn't where I wanted it to be, so it had to go. Right, it had to go. And I couldn't believe how deep this root was for this little tiny flat thing on the top of the soil, because there's no seedling there, no flower. But that's like us. If we, thank you very much. You see, I was right about Socratic questioning. Yeah, he would spend hours just asking questions with another question. And I do know that there are discussion groups which do this, which I think I'd find that quite difficult to handle, really. So if we actually thought about, rather than asking questions, actually thought about delivering the answer ourselves, we might actually find that we know, if I know what it is, what would it be? I remember being told that as a method of searching for my own truth. If I know what it is, what would it be? But the problem is that's denied to us, because organizations will say, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have the answer. We will give you the answer. We will tell you what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And if you don't, we'll fail you.
Mm.
And there are several organizations that work on this. If you don't do it like this, we will fail you. Not, well, actually, we think what you've just done is absolutely amazing and will change the dynamic of the pass or fail to recognize that, goodness me, that was awesome. it has to be a tick box exercise, and very much belief or faith relies on a tick box. So if we're doing that, we're being totally distracted by what we could be achieving if we were allowed what was originally provided and still is in many versions of the principles, this freedom to explore. But it has been curtailed by some groups. And when you start doing that, then you begin to tie down belief to one, you tie belief down to one interpretation. Yeah, exactly. You want to empower the individual. Absolutely right, Elspeth, and not dictate. But unfortunately, to sign on the dotted line, organizations often want to dictate exactly.
Yeah.
And that isn't going to go down well with the spirit world.
Because again, we've got at this time 30 of us in the room. We've all got our understanding. We've all got our interaction and our relationships with the other world to one degree or another, and with ourselves. This is again when we go back to today's needs in mediumship. It's just something that's filtered through. And the question arose of, are we doing enough to support the spiritual, moral, and educational needs of our mediums today, rather than just the mechanics?
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, we'll bring the pioneers back in, dig them up again. We'll bring the pioneers back in. And as I say, I think it's a bit unfair to compare today's medium to one of 50 years ago, because their whole lifestyle was different. Their diet was different. Their health was different. Their sociological pressures were different to us today. So it's like saying to somebody, go and write a poem while you're sat on a roundabout on the M1, and then go and write a poem and sitting on a ledge in the Lake District. You're going to get two polar opposite results from the same experiment. So it's the conditions. But, as I say, bringing it back in, do we need, it's been common said that churches and centres, when we're trying these evenings to debate philosophy, evenings just to promote general discussion, that we're not getting the amount of people in we would do if we put a demo mediumship on. I get that. And I do get that in today's world, if you're running a church or a centre, there is big financial outlays. If you're renting, I know somewhere that's renting their hall, which is £45, then the medium's fee, which is 20, so they need £65 in that plate each and every time they open the door. I get that. I do get that. But have we actually sort of like drummed out of the movement the potential? Because, it's a 3-pillar society. We have our evidential mediumship, our healing, and our philosophy, or inspired speaking. And these are like the 3 legs of the stool on which we sit. Oh, I like that.
No, that's been said before. I'll tell you about that later, but somebody else has actually came up with that before. It's a good idea. Yes, sorry about that. I'll let you know about that later.
They might have been a time traveler and they're watching it now and they're going to go back and say it because it... Okay.
When I tell you who it is, I don't think you'll think that. I think you'll think it's quite funny. But yes, that was given as interest about 12 years ago. Yes, sorry about that. A good idea. Just get this. A good idea never has to go to waste. It can always be resurrected. So I'll let you have that, Laurie.
But anyway,
the thing is there anybody out there who actually says, I've got a different way of looking at things, but I've never dared to raise it in case I get people going at me, you shouldn't be doing that. Let's hear about it. This is exactly the opportunity that we would love to hear from somebody saying, well, actually, I've got a completely different slant on this, and it's been mulling around in my mind. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, please do. Because also when we find these situations where we have this thought, we have this image within us, and think, oh, I'm not going to share that. I will say something here, and I'm not being nasty or whatever. There is this current trend where there is an awful lot of talk about Arcturians and different alien beings who are here to guide and help us. My thinking, my understanding with it, and it is mine, if you believe in aliens, absolutely great. I'm not saying you're wrong, but have you considered the alternative that all through history, every angel, every cherubim, every seraphim has always been, from a highly evolved and advanced realm, shrouded in light and with great knowledge to bring us. And it does seem to me, there may be the potential there that are, we're physical beings. I need to see a mouse. Yeah. You talk mouse, I can see it. There it is. Because that's how my mind processes it. So when we talk about evolved beings, are we putting these different tags on? But actually, we're talking about one core subject. It's just thought. But as I say, when we have these thoughts and we don't share it, it becomes your own personal. I'm careful what I'm saying now, in case somebody else has said this. It becomes your own personal podium, but with nobody there to share it with. And surely the great thing about our movement is that we can have this air of debate, and put forward these prepositions that, what I've just said. Have you ever considered that what you perceive as an alien is a highly advanced spirit? And that's the mindset that, for whatever reason, is the imagery that your physical mind is attributed to it, because we need a physical image to relate to it. If we say, oh, it's a really high energy, it's a really distinct wave of communication, our mind's going, what? What?
What's for tea? Is that fish fingers we're having? Oh, yeah, that'll do. The thing is, though, how often do we really want to be placed in that position of being challenged for our basic understanding? It's quite big for somebody to say, have you thought about it like this? Because we become very possessive, don't we? Very possessive about this understanding and this knowledge. So much so that we almost give it a copyright. Like, I believe this, copyright Angela Foster. And don't you dare challenge me, because it's my copyright and I've got every right. And as soon as you start, people become very defensive. They become reactive. They don't respond. To actually be able to say, I give you that. That's a really interesting concept. And I'm going to maybe just slightly filter it and suggest X, Y, and Z. What's Ashley saying there?
Ashley was just saying there, she finds it strange that we can talk about off-planet beings and yet get shunned for talking about the greatest documented healer of all time. Yeah. Well,
it's much easier because nobody can offer us anything concrete about off-planet beings. I mean, whatever you say, it could be plausible. It's like reading a child a story. They could put any end to the story that they like, and it wouldn't matter. But there are certain stories that you can't challenge and you don't change because they're written in history.
Yeah.
But it's really difficult for us then to be able to say, well, that may have happened, but let's concede that this may be different as to why it happened, or the effect it had on everybody in context. Again, because we don't look at this in context, do we? We tend to try and translate everything to modern day.
Yeah. And also today's world, sadly, we do have this big energy of entitlement that affects all levels of our life. And when we put thoughts and ideas out there, it's very quickly taken up by some people to become something that you can pick up and start beating you around the head with. And it's very difficult at times to come together with people with a like-minded approach, with an open-minded approach, and go, okay, people say things to me and I go, yeah, that's fine. If that works for you, that's fine. I can't see any potential for harm in there. But if it works for you, that's great. It's nothing I'm going to embark on. It's nothing I'm going to engage with, because at this time it's not for me. But if it works for you and it leads to healing, good and evolved thinking, great. Great.
No, it's
Roy McKay there. People still consider their beliefs personal, right or wrong.
That's it. That's just echoing what I said earlier. That's absolutely right. We put copyright on our feelings, on our beliefs, and it breaks up families. It divides religious groups into segments, and it can come in quite insidiously as well. A slight change in the wording of a mission statement or something like that can suddenly change the whole dynamic. And it's very difficult, I feel, for those who've had a belief in something for many, many years to see changes, however small, if that's what they believe in. So then how do they deal with this? Do they either have an open discussion with what these changes might be? Do they dismiss them out of hand? Do they get very uptight and possessive? I mean, it's probably how we react to the changes going on around us rather than anything else. But there's free will, free won't, free can't, free shan't at the end of the day. And if we acknowledge that there's going to be free will, free won't, free can't, free shan't, and that as another thing that's come up in recently, we were talking about society in your thread, that really society is freedom is licensed. And even those free will, free won't, free can't, free shan't are licensed. Nobody's totally free to have opinions, because there's going to be somebody out there that's going to take umbrage.
Yeah.
So is there anybody who's got some wonderful theory that here can be the platform? Let's start a new movement of, going to Tesco rather than Sainsbury or whatever it is. I mean, that's pretty basic stuff, really.
Free thinkers. There was an actual movement, wasn't there? Correct me if I'm wrong. The free thinkers around about the time of the Bloomsbury writers and that sort of era. And there was some sort of movement about free thinkers, and they were just floating different ideas about, and they were considered very much the anarchists of the day. Because obviously in those days we were still under the Victorian values. So anybody coming away from deviating from what is and what shall be was an anarchist.
That is completely opposite from, is it the Rosicrucians who were given such a prescriptive set of beliefs that were handed down through ceremony, that this was the way, the light and the truth. So we do get groups who either, maybe it's to do with our personalities, maybe some of us like to conform, absolutely, not deviate, feel comfortable and secure in that. And then there are others who go, don't like it, don't want it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. Lovely Reverend Ashley. So you saying that we are in an echo chamber within the broad movement of spiritualism. Do we have enough debate about our theology principles, not in a confrontational way, just to discuss?
No, I don't believe we do. I don't believe we do at all. The problem is we're so tied by the laws of the land that make us state in articles of association and all that sort of thing. Once you start getting involved in, and you would know more about this, charity, I mean, you have to fairly well pin down what your mission statement is, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very much.
And to change them requires quite a lot of hassle. So that once we organize ourselves into a group, a religion, which has always been my beef, we then begin to limit the possibility of change and growth, because we have to tie it down for the purposes of an act or a legal requirement or whatever. And that is just so, I mean, I'm going to let it out. I was very concerned once I knew that spiritualism was going down the way of religion, of becoming a religion, because I thought that is going to tie it down in a way that without that label, there was this freedom to explore exactly and debate. But as soon as we begin to confine it, for whatever the reasons are, you know, the other freedoms it might give, it does restrict freedom in other areas. So I've said it out here publicly now, and I should probably be for that. But so I agree with you, Ashley, that no, we don't, because if we do, then we are no longer conforming to what we've signed up for.
But in this modern age now, with the use of platforms such as this and the Zoom meetings rooms, there is the potential there, which is wonderful. We've become an underground movement. How exciting!
Yeah, absolutely.
How exciting! Yeah, the little
Especially
rebel.
at my age, my goodness me.
Rebel in me has just sat up and gone, "Did you call?"
The most underground I am at my age is getting underneath the bed covers at night. That's about the underground. I love that. There's little in all of us. There's that little bit of that free spirit, isn't there? That's always just trying to escape. There's always that little bit of mischief inside us that wants to stir the pot. Exactly, Ashley. This is the problem. We're tying it down. We're tying something which is supposed to be the ultimate freedom, the ultimate expression, without that middleman. We are tying it down, hook, line, and sinker. And that frightens me more than anything, to be honest. That really does.
And it was such a great show. I do understand it from the legality side, that the eighth principle had to be dropped, because in the eyes of the law and the charity commissions, it made a mockery of the first seven principles. But that open to freedom of interpretation was given to us by the other world.
Yeah.
It's not alike, and the fact that we don't display it and the fact we don't advertise it or even talk about it is so that we can conform into that charity number, into that legal state. We were having a conversation today about divine services and their role to be considered and regarded by the establishment as a church, and what we must and must not do within that. But as I say, if we actually look at spiritualism and mentally include that eighth principle, this is open to the freedom of interpretation, it changes everything, because it does allow us that freedom.
Yeah. And no one is the same as we were last year. My views and understanding is quite different from that when I was a child and go to church, I'd go to mass once with my parents. Quite different from when I was growing up and had my children and they were young. And what should I do? Should I continue with them down the path of Catholicism? Took them, I would take them to communion. They went through a couple of the sacraments. And at what stage? And do you know what it was? Do you know what made me stand back from that which had been absolutely embedded in my childhood? Was the church talking about life after death. And I knew that my dad wasn't resting in peace. I knew from experience. And I thought, if somebody could mislead me about something as basic as resting in peace, then everything else just tumbles. And this is the problem with once we establish ourselves and connect with other like-minded people, we're never going to connect completely with all like-minded people in the same way. We're going to be like those Venn diagrams where we just cross, and there'll be some elements and that are comfortable with us, some that don't quite sit right, some that we know are just wrong, and it's difficult to know how much to conform, how much to accept, how much not to share what you really believe in from your gut, because in doing so you're then coming out in a way, and be challenged.
Yeah. And does it serve purpose? Again, in today's world, we're seeing so many challenges of people with different genders, different identities, and whatever. And it is being used as a tool to cause division, upset, and angst among people. But, you know, if you want to be that, that's fine. You know, and yeah, you have a good life. But don't say, I've got to do this. This is where we start crossing lines and borders. If that's the way you wish to live, if this is what we want to believe, that's great. That's great for you. And it should really be that simple. You know, and that's it. It's not giving permission to people, it's agreement, it's making an agreement. And the same within our movement. That, you know, if we think this or we're persuaded by that, okay, if it works for you, again, if it does no harm, if it's you know, follow me, it only costs you £800 a month. If it's not one of those setups or whatever. But if it works for you, or you find an interest in it, or there's a facet of it that actually supports your thinking and develops that thinking even more, well, that's great. That really is great. But unfortunately, oh no, you can't talk about that. Oh no, don't read that here.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know how we can create a movement that is strong enough to listen to what the spirit world has to say to us in this day and age, and also yet to be part of a group of people with, broadly speaking, the same ideals, because that's the best you can expect. You know, yeah. My husband and I have completely different ideas about what religious understanding and is all about, completely, and yet we've had 45 great years of debating this and respecting each other's viewpoint. It must be really nice at times to be with somebody who would like to go to every church in the country with me, you know, supporting me while I do my woo-woo stuff. But it ain't going to happen in this marriage. That's why online has just been amazing for me. He's in a sitting room, you know, playing on a computer game and being totally frustrated by that. And I'm on here being totally frustrated by some of the things I hear and thinking, what are we doing? You know, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? But yeah, that's, oh, hang on. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, just catch up with a few of the comments here. Lovely Ashley there. She said, that is why, even though I'm a Christian spiritualist, that I investigated the interfaith path, because they are a tapestry of faith and personal belief. And yeah, that's great. You're still maintaining your identity, and you're not using it to cause division or anything like that, but you're integrating with other faiths. And, you know, and if all faiths could do that, wow, what a change that could be, as long as that message filtered down and out to the rank and file.
Based on respect and mutual understanding. Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. Libby, the word religion has put several of my friends off coming along to Bath Road. Yeah, I get that. We've got to be mindful, because it's a very easy get out for an awful lot of people, I've discovered over the years.
Good point.
To say, oh, I don't go, it's a religion. Oh, I don't go there, it's a church. Do you know what? If I called myself a fetish and turned the church into a bar, there were people going, oh, I don't go into fetish. I don't do it. You some people, you are never going to change their mindset. When I get that, and I get it here. Why are you a church? Because we're a church. What's the problem? Walk in. If you burst into flames, I'll apologise. It's not happened yet. I've told a couple of times.
Most of us have thrown the baby out with the bathwater. You know, there is an element of me which will be, you can take the girl out of Catholicism, but you can't take Catholicism out of the girl. There are Catholics, non-Catholics, and lapsed Catholics, and no other breed. But apparently, the Islamic faith have the same concept. You know, so there is elements. But this is who we are. We aren't we haven't lost everything that we are at this moment in time. We are, because we are a community of all that information, of all that experience, of all that knowledge, of that understanding, of those false paths we've gone down, of those U-turns we've made, of those crossroads we've come to and don't know where we go from here. That's who I am. Of the experiences I've had in relationships, and good and bad, of my beautiful children and grandchildren, of job experiences, there is nothing that I have experienced in my life that I cannot say hasn't made me into who I am today.
Exactly. Lovely Moya Dwyer. In all ancient spiritual traditions, there was a concept that to be in touch with the divine was to be in touch with what was sometimes depicted as a mystery. In our modern need for linear analysis, we deny the experience of the eternal.
That's very deep.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's from the night.
Moya's been on Utah. In fact, Moya, my darling, I think we need to talk one night, because I do love your thoughts that you share with us. And yeah, again, this is links in a way when we start talking about the religion, because we got a gentleman came here one day and he was stood at the door, and I said, "Oh, hi, first time." "Yes, but I'm not sure if I should come in." I said, "Why is that then?" He said, "Because I'm a druid." And I said, "Oh, I've got some very good druid friends, and I know so-and-so, and I know so-and-so, I know the chief druid of the UK. "Yeah, but you're not going to talk about God, are you?" And I said, "We're going to talk about the eternal, the divine, the divinity within." I said, "But we're not going to talk about the old bloke sat in the chair with the big staff. As I said, as we're not going to be talking about, the figures within Druidism, because we're each free to explore our own path." And he came in, he actually liked it, and he gave a really good write-up on Google.
Druid today.
Yeah, it was really nice. But this is it.
This is understanding, isn't it? This is because we respond and don't react. This is because we ask questions of other people. Well, why do you believe that? I know when I was doing my teaching qualification, although it was a regulated qualification, it was run by a private college, and they were all Muslims. And I thought, my goodness me, how am I going to be able to teach mediumship? Because that was my specialist subject. There aren't many out there who have any formal qualifications in teaching mediumship. It's a bit of a new path, really, for the moment. Let's hope this. Anyway, that's another discussion. But I was really concerned that their natural prejudices, as I have mine about other faiths, my natural concerns about delivery was there, and there would actually colour the way that they judged my teaching ability. It did not happen. I was overwhelmed by the generosity of understanding that these lovely people showed me. They were there, that they were non-judgmental. They were there just to see if I could teach. The subject matter was irrelevant. For some, it was really interesting. And I must admit that the teaching sessions that they had to watch, they watched with interest, because it was going to be completely different from your normal maths, English, or history that all the other teachers were teaching. So sometimes we have to not allow our prejudices to stop us communicating with other people, because we fear what their reaction is going to be. And this can very often happen. We know our own truths. This is why I was quite slow in saying that I was a spiritualist to my Catholic cousins. And one of them said, didn't see that coming. But there are friendships that I know have been spoiled for good, because their deeply held beliefs, which are as deeply held as mine are, would come into conflict with how I see things, because it would threaten, in a way, it would threaten what they understand. I don't want to be a threat to anybody. I'm not interested in converting anybody. That isn't my aim. Yeah?
I said, you frighten me.
Oh, well, I know I do, but that's because I tell you the truth as it is,
Yeah, stop that.
That's the mum in me. You see, that's the mum in me. So you have to realise, I've got my mum's hat on, like, come on, Laurie, behave yourself now. You're going to listen to what I'm going to say. Because I've lost control with my kids. And I'm sure all mums out there and grandmas would say, oh, we don't have any control of our kids. So we look for other victims. So I'm sorry, Laurie, you've got it. You're the victim. But I think there is a fear to say, let me hear what you have to say. Let me understand it from your viewpoint. Let me try and see what are the similarities, what are the differences. And if we are frightened to do that outside and don't do it, of our own religion, our own, any other word, our own understanding of our belief in spiritualism. Again, it's not a belief because we know that, don't we? So I don't know what word you'd call it if you want to supplement the word religion. But in our deeply held understanding and knowledge. And then we're also frightened about discussing it with other like-minded people, like here. To be honest, we're going to close off.
Yeah.
Completely close off.
Yeah. And when we expand that thinking about not just applying this to religions of whatever denomination, but also to various aspects of our lives, we can see the basic. I'll give it religion as an example. You were brought up in Catholicism. You were given a rigid boundary, rules, regulations. A lot of people will just sit within, there may not be the intent following through when you're doing Heart Watch Wallet and everything, because it just becomes, is it?
You're right, yeah.
I'll just...
the other way is yeah.
But I'll bring that word in. We can just accept the dogma and facilitate that, but it actually is not part of our personal experience.
Yeah,
it is just a habit. Excuse the pun. It is just a habit that we perform. So when anybody comes in and challenges that, it's like you can see the instant reaction, because actually that's betraying your lack of knowledge, understanding, and integration into what you're doing, surely.
I remember many years ago when I was actually, I suppose my journey started really once Catholicism didn't fit with me as well as it should do, was with Reiki. And I thought I was exploring it for my daughter's benefit because I thought she'd make a really great Reiki healer. But it turned out it was my journey. And there were some books laid out in my sitting room, and it was talking about different things. And then these dear friends of ours came in and said, "Is that what you believe in?" Well, to be honest, there is nothing written by any one person or any one organization that completely sums up what I believe in. It is a cherry pick. I have this wonderful smorgasbord of concepts and ideas that probably confuse, conflict, will move on at times. It's just so fluid that I can't say that there is any one reference point that says that is what I believe in completely and utterly. And if it did today, flaming well wouldn't tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, I felt you're really hanging me on one book that's sitting on my side table that isn't the Bible. If it was the Bible, they would totally accept, oh, that's what you believe in. But because it wasn't, there was this that made me feel very uncomfortable, because it was challenging. Again, it was challenging me, and I couldn't say yes or no because I didn't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'd love to have that conviction of faith, where people have that. This is it, nothing else. It's not moving from here. It's totally static. I can rest in that and go on and do my shopping at Tesco.
Yeah. That makes such sense.
It's not like that.
Anyway, we've got a fan club starting out there online between the lovely Ashley and the lovely Moira.
Oh, bless them.
So they're getting on famously. Reverend Ashley there, that sounds interfaith, Ashley. A flow of faith, beautifully expressed, we grow. Yeah. I consider myself an evolution of thoughts and ideals, and that continues, because it is an evolution. Tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up slightly shifted, and by the evening time I might be slightly shifted again. We've got a lovely service tomorrow from the wonderful Jamie. There may be something in his philosophy which makes me go, do you know what, I really like that, because
For bound to be.
yeah,
He's got great abilities. Yeah, Jamie. Yes, absolutely.
yeah, that either supports or contradicts what I understand. And I'm not afraid to go in, if I feel a contradiction, to go in and examine all sides and go, yeah, I'm not perfect. Did I get it right in the first place? Normally I have, you know.
Well, we know that.
Normally that's the case.
Don't challenge him. Let him think it.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. But yeah, it was wonderful. Angela, thank you so much. As always, been a great delight talking with you. And it's so nice to be talking to you while I'm dressed.
Well, yeah, I was going to say we usually have this conversation about 9 o'clock in the morning when one of us needs to go to the loo, but it's equally as deep.
I'm sat there in me 90.
eating the porridge because we only got about 10 minutes. But
Yeah.
the thing is that there are some people we know in life that you're naturally drawn to who will communicate with you in a very loving way, and I want to thank Laurie for that, because it's really lovely to have somebody that you can speak with and will feel that you're not challenged in such an uncomfortable way that you then pull back.
Yeah, not challenged to be made to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I had
You always agree with me, don't you? That's the thing, Laurie. That's what makes it so good between us.
Yeah, you've beaten me into shape over the last couple of years. I'll just go, yes, and
whatever.
Another lovely lady does this. Is the wonderful Kim Mulcullen. She has a wonderful way of asking you questions. And the first time, I always remember that. I'm going to share it. It's a bit embarrassing for me, but I'm going to share it. She said, "So what are you doing with?" She said, "So what's going on with you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm progressing my mediumship." How? And you know what? I didn't have anything to say. And then I went back and said, "Why did I say progressing my mediumship?" You know, I'm just like, yeah, you're not a victim of this. And I don't mean that in any disparaging way to Kim. I absolutely adore Kim. She's a wonderful lady. But
we don't have all the answers sometimes. We have the thoughts and the thought flow, but we can't tie it up in nice little packages. And I think that's the problem. You know, somebody says to you how, well, you know it's a process, but you haven't actually defined it. And that's what the problem was there. You hadn't actually defined that journey. Like, you're going shopping, but you don't really know what for until you get there.
But I'm highlighting here, we all need those people in our life that will ask these questions of us. And again, not in a game of dominance over you. It's just, okay, explain that. How does that happen? To make you think, which is wonderful. I'm not quite sure what that's appertaining to, Jamie.
Tell us more. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me more. But yeah, we as spiritualists, we have this wonderful opportunity to keep our understanding, our integration, our philosophy of spiritualism up to date. Not talking out of dry, dusty relic books, but really up to date. Seeing, how spirit move and inspire things in today's world.
And from different sources. A poem, something a child says, it's all about realizing that influence, that spark can come from anywhere at any time, and it's whatever vehicle it chooses. So, I mean, the big question for me is, do we regard spiritualism with a big S or a little s? And that probably sums up quite a lot about how I'm feeling at the moment. Should it have a big S or a little s?
Yeah. Yep. Anyway. Thank you, everybody. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Please remember, you can watch our service live from the church here tomorrow. And we have the wonderful Jamie Williamson, who's been very active in the room tonight. He will be our demonstrator for the day. In the meantime, if you wish to catch up with things, just go onto our website. It's just been revamped and everything. So there's quite a lot of access to different videos, podcasts, conversations and things coming up here in the church. So on behalf of myself, thank you.
On behalf of me, thank you very much, Lee.
Have a wonderful night, everybody.